A civilization's final message was found baked in a kiln, still mid-sentence. Picture a crime scene frozen at the moment of death. The year is roughly 1200 BC. The place is Ugarit, a thriving port on the coast of modern Syria, and the evidence is still smoking. In 1979, archaeologists found something that stopped them cold. Inside a pottery kiln sat a clay tablet placed there to be fired. The scribe never came back. The fire that destroyed Ugarit baked the tablet for the last time. This tablet is a message that was never sent, a cry for help that never arrived. It's the closest thing we have to a dying declaration from a civilization that vanished overnight. So who was Ugarit? It sat at the crossroads of the ancient world, connecting the Hittite Empire to the north, Egypt to the south, Cyprus across the sea, and Mycenaean Greece to the west. Its scribes wrote in at least 8 languages. This was ancient globalization, and Ugarit was not alone. The Late Bronze Age was a world of interconnected superpowers. The Hittites ruled Anatolia from Hattusa. The Mycenaeans dominated Greece. Egypt stretched into the Levant. A merchant in Ugarit could obtain tin from Afghanistan and lapis lazuli from Badakhshan through middlemen he never met. This was the ancient world's first international system. And within 50 years, between 1200 and 1150 BC, almost every civilization in the eastern Mediterranean collapsed. The Hittite Empire vanished. Mycenaean palaces burned. Egypt survived but was permanently crippled. And Ugarit was wiped so thoroughly that people forgot it existed for 3,000 years, which brings us back to that tablet. The letter, catalogued as RS 34.129, was from the last king of Ugarit, Amurapi, to the king of Elashia, ancient Cyprus. He writes that enemy ships have been sighted. They're burning his cities. He's begging for troops, for ships, for anything. But here's the detail that makes your blood run cold. The tablet was found still in the kiln. The scribe wrote the letter, placed it inside to be baked, and the city fell before he could retrieve it. The fire that consumed Ugarit finished the job the kiln had started. The king of Elashia did write back, in a separate letter found in the ruins. His response is painful to read. He tells Amurapi to gather his people, fortify his cities, and wait. His own forces are stretched thin. He's fighting the same enemy. Help is not coming. So who did this? Who destroyed Ugarit and brought down an entire world? Historians have spent over a century interrogating 4 main suspects, and the truth is stranger than any single culprit. Suspect number 1, the seapeoples. Egyptian inscriptions from Merneptah in 1208 BC and Ramses III in 1177 BC describe confederations of sea raiders attacking coastlines across the eastern Mediterranean. Ramses III's temple at Medinet Habu names them, the Peliset, the Shekelesh, the Tejeker, the Denian. A roll call of mysterious groups whose origins we still debate. The sea peoples make an easy villain. They're recorded destroying cities, described as coming from the sea, from the islands, from nowhere. But here's the problem. They don't have a homeland we can find. They don't leave their own records. And many destroyed cities show damage that doesn't match a seaborne invasion alone. The sea peoples were real and dangerous, but they may have been a symptom as much as a cause, opportunists striking a system already faltering. We can't rule them out, but we can't pin everything on them either. Suspect number 2, earthquakes. The eastern Mediterranean sits on active fault lines, and archaeologists have found evidence of earthquake storms, clusters of major quakes hitting the region over a short period. At Troy, at Mycenae, at sites across the Levant, walls weren't just burned, they were physically cracked and toppled in ways fire alone can't explain. An earthquake storm could explain why so many cities fell simultaneously without a single invading army. But earthquakes don't erase civilizations. Cities rebuild after quakes. They did it before and after this period. Something prevented the rebuilding, which leads to suspect number 3, drought. In 2013, pollen cores from the Sea of Galilee showed a dramatic decline in tree pollen around 1200 BC, signaling a sharp shift to drier conditions. Stalagmites from Anatolian caves and tree ring data from junipers confirm a prolonged dry period. The ancient world was entering a climate crisis. Think about what drought means for a civilization like Ugarit. No rain means failed harvests. Failed harvests mean famine, and famine does what no army can. It breaks the social contract. People who can't feed their children don't pay taxes, don't obey kings, and don't man the city walls. That brings us to suspect 4, the one that ties everything together. Systems collapse. The late Bronze Age world was so interconnected, so specialized, so dependent on long-distance trade, that when one part failed, the rest couldn't compensate. Ugarit imported grain, tin, copper. When trade routes broke, the city couldn't feed or arm itself. The Hittites show this perfectly. They relied on grain shipments from vassal states. When drought hit those regions, the grain stopped. When the grain stopped, the vassal states had nothing to send. The imperial system lost its grip. Hadusa wasn't just conquered. It was abandoned. The population walked away. The Mycenaeans show the same pattern. Their palace economy ran on redistributing agricultural surplus. When the surplus vanished, the palaces became liabilities. Linear B tablets from Pylos show administrators tracking bronze allocations and religious offerings, desperately propitiating gods while the system crumbled. Then the palaces burned, one after another, and Greece lost writing for 400 years. So here's the picture. It wasn't the sea peoples alone. It wasn't a single earthquake. It wasn't just drought. It was a chain reaction. Climate stress triggered crop failures. Crop failures triggered famine and migration. Displaced populations became raiders. Earthquakes damaged infrastructure at the worst possible moment. And the trade network that made everyone rich became the vector through which collapse spread. Think of dominoes. The trade network was the line connecting them. When one fell, in the Aegean or Anatolia, it knocked into the next, in Cyprus or the Levant. Ugarit stood in the middle of the chain, connected to everything, protected by nothing. Now picture that final night. The letter from Alatia has arrived. Help is not coming. Enemy ships have been spotted. The scribe writes the desperate reply, places it in the kiln. And then the attack came. The city burned. The kiln fired the tablet one last time, and Ugarit was gone. The destruction layer tells its own story. A thick deposit of ash. Unburied bodies in the streets. Valuables left behind, bronze tools, ivory, gold, things people would have taken if they'd had time. This wasn't an orderly evacuation. It was a catastrophe that came too fast for anyone to prepare. And here's what makes this more than ancient history. The late Bronze Age collapse was the failure of an interconnected, specialized, trade-dependent world. A world where crisis in one region spread to every other through supply chains and alliances. A world that assumed the system would always hold. We live in our own version of that world. Our supply chains stretch across oceans. Our food systems depend on a handful of global breadbaskets. Our economies are so linked that a factory shut down in one country empties shelves in another. And we face our own climate stress, our own instability. I'm not saying civilization is about to collapse. We have tools the Bronze Age didn't: global communication, scientific understanding, the ability to see the chain reaction coming. But the lesson of Ugarit is that collapse comes from a system that's lost its resilience, where every part depends on every other, and no part can stand alone. That tablet in the kiln is the most haunting artifact from this entire period. Not because of what it says, though its words are desperate enough, but because of what it represents. A message trapped mid-transmission. A civilization caught at the exact moment of its unraveling. The detective's verdict, after a century of investigation, is that there was no single murderer. The sea peoples kicked in the door, but the door was already cracked. Drought had weakened the frame. Earthquakes had loosened the hinges. And the interconnected system meant that when one wall fell, the whole house came down. Ugarit's last letter was never delivered, but in a way, it reached us. 3,000 years later, we pulled it from the ashes and read it. Its message isn't just about approaching enemy ships. It's about what happens when a complex world forgets how fragile it is. The words survived. Maybe they're the warning we needed. Follow for more deep dives into the moments that shaped and ended civilizations.